What would happen if the Power Rangers reboot fails? For those who don't already know, the Power Rangers franchise is getting a reboot, and Cosmic Fury was the last season of the universe we've all known for 30 years. The reboot is going to change everything drastically, and this may be good, but it also means a very big risk. The changes of the reboot include that the franchise is going to create a new universe that is not going to have any connection with the previous universe. This means that we will never be able to see the Rangers we already know participating in this new universe. Of course, this doesn't mean that we won't be able to see some of the actors, since the actors and the characters are different concepts. Another change that the reboot includes is the change of audience, since we all know that Power Rangers has always been created for a child audience, but according to the information on the internet, the reboot is supposed to be aimed at young adults. This change is the most significant since it opens the door to many other big changes in the franchise, and it is from this point that other things begin to emerge. By changing the type of audience a project is aimed at, it means that you can modify practically everything, and you only have to leave the essence intact. What does this mean? Earlier we talked about the essence of the franchise, which involves the core idea of what Power Rangers is, and this includes the costumes, the transformations, the power, the weapons, and some other important things. Now that the franchise is going to be aimed at a more adult audience, then you have to include all of those things, but at the same time you can make some pretty dramatic changes to it. For example, we have previously talked about the costumes, which can be a key factor for this new universe not to be a failure. I'm not saying that the costumes are the most important thing, but imagine having a great story, great characters, awesome weapons, but horrible costumes. Obviously, it's not going to have the same impact, because every time those costumes appear, then you're going to feel uncomfortable, and you won't have the same excitement to watch the series. That's why every change they're going to make in the reboot is very important, because the new producers have the eyes of all the fans judging any changes they're going to make in this new beginning. So, let's go back to the initial question. What would happen if the Power Rangers reboot fails? The reality is that this answer is based on each person's opinion, as there are different paths Hasbro can take if the reboot fails. I want to make it clear that I am all for the reboot and want this new beginning to be a success, but in life we must also be prepared for failures. Even big companies like Hasbro are always prepared for failures, because for us fans the failure of a project only means disappointment, but for the company that is creating the project it means a big loss of money, and sometimes it can mean the demise of the company. In this case, I don't think that the failure of Power Rangers will cause Hasbro to disappear, but we know that obviously the company doesn't want to lose money either, and that's why they must be prepared for any outcome. The first thing we must say is that if the reboot fails, then the biggest anger that fans will have is that they stopped the universe we have known for 30 years for nothing. You have to remember that a huge sacrifice has been made to be able to do this reboot, since you stopped a franchise that had been going on for 30 years without stopping, and this involves the childhood of many people. Besides this, even though the franchise was no longer having the success it had many years ago, we must accept that the last few projects were impressive. Cosmic Fury changed the format of the series, and this helped a lot to get old fans interested in watching that season. Another change Cosmic Fury had is that they used very few scenes from the Japanese series and also created original costumes. These small changes were what they needed to do many years ago so that the franchise could be different and have another chance to be successful again. Another project we had was the special episode to celebrate 30 years of the franchise, which was an episode to celebrate Mighty Morphin, and it was also a very different project. In this episode they involved legends of the franchise and at the same time created a great story that paved the way for a new generation. This great opportunity to perhaps create a new series of a second generation of Mighty Morphin with a more adult style was lost due to the reboot, and this is what Hasbro risked to create the new universe. If the reboot fails, then they could make another attempt by creating another new universe, but this would take several years, and this is what happened with the 2017 movie. For those who didn't know, this movie was the first attempt to do a reboot of the franchise, but the difference is that the regular series never stopped. That attempt was before Hasbro started the franchise and was possibly what sparked their interest in Power Rangers. Since Hasbro bought the franchise, their idea was to do a reboot and turn it into a universe for a more adult audience. This obviously could not be done so quickly, and that is why they created Beast Morphers and the first season of Dino Fury. The second season of Dino Fury wasn't even going to exist, but because the reboot wasn't ready yet, so the company decided to make that second season. Then they created Cosmic Fury to keep giving the reboot time, and this may be a good sign. Obviously, the reboot is still in development, which means they are still deciding on the first things. Another avenue to look at if the reboot fails is that perhaps they could continue with the old universe and keep creating new seasons. This would be a little bit weird because, if you're making the decision to stop that old universe, it's because you know it's not succeeding anymore, and you have a good chance that you're never going to get the franchise off the ground that way. The reality is, if they implement the changes they made in Cosmic Fury and additionally also create another alternate series with the story of the special episode, then they could improve the franchise a lot. In the special episode we had the new Yellow Ranger, which was a great decision to have included her as part of the team, and they can do this with the other colors. The legendary Rangers could stay as mentors, while the new Rangers could be the new Mighty Morphin team, and this series could be aimed for a more adult audience. This way they would have a series for adults and a series for a children's audience. The next children's series could be like Cosmic Fury, not use Japanese scenes, create new original costumes, and have all the episodes connected. What if the reboot fails? They can make another attempt after a few years. They can also revive the old universe by creating two different series for different audiences, and they can also continue with the new universe until we fans get used to the change.